Welcome to School of the Lost Tribes Radio, where the word speaks not to the world, but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Clarity helps generate the lessons needed to seal the chosen before the destruction. The Arab slave trade began in the 7th century CE, following the expansion of Islam across the Arabian Peninsula and into Africa. It continued for over a millennium, spanning East Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia, predating the European transatlantic slave trade by centuries. Major geographic regions involved included East Africa, where Zanzibar, Kilwa, and the Swahili coast became primary hubs for the capture and export of African slaves. The Nile Valley in Sudan connected sub-Saharan Africa with Egypt and the Middle East, while Sahara Desert routes linked West Africa to North Africa and the Maghreb. From these regions, enslaved Africans were transported to Arabia, Persia, India, and the Ottoman Empire. Trade routes included caravan paths from Timbuktu, Lake Chad, and Darfur, leading north to the Mediterranean, and East African maritime routes using dhows across the Indian Ocean to ports such as Muscat, Aden, and Basra. Countless enslaved people perished during these harsh journeys, especially across the desert. Enslaved Africans served in a variety of roles: domestic work in households, military forces such as under the Abbasid and Ottoman caliphates, including the Zanj and Mamluks, and agricultural labor, most notably on plantations in southern Iraq's salt marshes, where oppression eventually sparked the Zanj Rebellion, 869 to 883 CE. Some were subjected to concubinage or were castrated to serve as eunuchs in palaces, particularly in Arabia and Ottoman lands. Historians estimate that between 10 to 18 million Africans were enslaved in the Arab slave trade over roughly 1,300 years. The system endured into the 19th century, despite European abolition movements and remnants of servitude persisted into the 20th century. Islamic law permitted slavery under certain conditions, emphasizing humane treatment and encouraging manumission, but these regulations were frequently ignored. Racial hierarchies developed over time, often placing Africans at the lowest status. Some Islamic scholars and rulers opposed the trade, while others benefited from it. Efforts toward abolition gained strength with the British naval blockade in the early 19th century, which targeted Indian Ocean slave routes, and with Zanzibar's 1873 treaty ending its public slave market. Yet clandestine trading continued for decades. The legacy of this slave trade remains visible today in African diasporic communities throughout Arabia, Iran, and South Asia. In several regions of the Gulf and East Africa, descendants of enslaved Africans still experience social stigmas connected to their ancestral servitude. Under Islamic law, Sharia, slavery was permitted yet regulated, requiring that enslaved persons be provided food, shelter, and pathways to manumission through conversion or loyal service. However, legal ideals rarely aligned with reality. Many enslavers ignored humane expectations, exploiting religious and legal loopholes to justify enslavement through warfare, racial interpretations of infidel status, and inherited bondage. In domestic settings, many enslaved Africans served as cooks, cleaners, nannies, guards, and handmaidens, with some entrusted to manage property or finances. Treatment varied dramatically, from moderate care in elite homes to severe abuse, and women often endured sexual exploitation, concubinage, or coerced marriage. In certain circumstances, children born to enslaved mothers and free fathers could achieve freedom and social advancement. In agricultural and industrial labor, enslaved Africans worked in harsh environments such as the salt marsh plantations of southern Iraq and clove and coconut plantations on Zanzibar and Pemba. Conditions were brutal, marked by exhausting physical labor under extreme heat, rampant disease, malnutrition, violence, and high mortality rates. These oppressive realities sparked major resistance, including the Zanj Rebellion, 869 to 883 CE, one of the largest slave uprisings in Islamic history. Military slavery formed another sector, where enslaved Africans were trained as soldiers, guards, and elite warriors, like the Zanj in Iraq and the Mamluks in Egypt. Though military slaves could gain status, wealth, and influence, they remained state property with strictly controlled lives. A particularly devastating institution was the castration of African males destined for palace service in Arabia, Persia, and the Ottoman Empire. With mortality rates exceeding 70%, those who survived served as eunuchs in harems and royal courts, gaining trust and access to power, yet denied family, lineage, and personal identity. Transport to slavery often involved forced marches across deserts or voyages across the Indian Ocean, where many died from exhaustion, starvation, thirst, or violence. Major slave markets operated in Zanzibar, Cairo, Mecca, Basra, and Muscat, where enslaved Africans were examined, branded, priced, and sold, often resulting in permanent family separation. Psychologically and culturally, enslaved Africans experienced forced erasure of identity, renamed and integrated into Arab or Persian households, often encouraged or compelled to convert to Islam and abandon ancestral faiths. Despite this, many preserved elements of African language, music, and tradition, leaving cultural imprints across Oman, Iraq, and East Africa. Freedom could occasionally be attained through self-purchase, loyal service, or childbirth, allowing some to enter society as mawali, freed persons, though racial prejudice often restricted integration. A few exceptional individuals rose to positions as scholars, poets, soldiers, or merchants, demonstrating rare but possible social mobility, even as most remained bound by systemic racial hierarchy. Across the Arab slave system, the general treatment of African captives varied based on assigned roles, yet systemic exploitation and violence defined the institution as a whole. Enslaved Africans were legally considered property with almost no rights, and owners exercised broad authority, including the power to beat, sell, or kill those they owned, despite religious teachings that urged humane conduct. Mortality rates were extremely high, especially during forced transport across deserts or by sea. Historian Paul Lovejoy estimates only 70 to 80% of captured Africans survived the journey to Arabian or Persian markets, illustrating the deadly nature of the trade. Castration was frequently practiced, particularly on boys destined for palace or harem service. The procedures, often carried out by non-Muslim intermediaries in regions such as the Nile Valley, Sudan, and East African ports like Swakan and Zanzibar, were crude and unsterile, causing many to die from blood loss or infection. Those who survived entered roles as harem guards, court servants, or high-level administrators, sometimes gaining political influence, yet stripped permanently of lineage and identity. Scholars estimate mortality rates from castration at 60 to 90%, according to works by Ralph Austin and Bernard Lewis. Sexual exploitation was widespread and normalized within the system. Enslaved African women were used as concubines, domestic servants, and even diplomatic gifts. Their sexual exploitation was non-consensual and legally permitted under concubinage. Though children born to enslaved mothers and free fathers were technically free, mothers often remained enslaved unless manumitted. In elite courts, such as Abbasid Baghdad, Umayyad Damascus, and Ottoman Istanbul, some concubines rose to positions of influence, yet this did not negate the violence inherent in their capture and exploitation. Historian Murray Gordon notes sexual access to enslaved women was regarded as a standard prerogative of ownership. Violence was a central tool of control. Beatings, mutilation, and execution enforced submission, especially in agricultural settings and during transport. Runaways could be branded, mutilated, or killed. During desert and oceanic transport, those deemed too weak to continue were abandoned or thrown overboard, contributing to death rates of 20 to 30% on overland marches. The Zanj plantations of southern Iraq in the 9th century are recorded as sites of extreme brutality, starvation, and killing. ultimately provoking the massive Zanj rebellion. Psychological and cultural dehumanization accompanied physical violence. Africans were racialized as inferior and often referred to with derogatory labels such as ABD and Zanj. Their original identities were erased through the forced adoption of Arabic names in Islam, while violence, humiliation, and separation from family and culture reinforced dependency and subjugation. Though some enslaved persons in wealthy households experienced relatively milder conditions or in rare cases rose to positions of power such as military commanders or trusted retainers, these situations were exceptional. The broader system remained deeply oppressive, violent, and dehumanizing. The historical impact of these practices was profound. Widespread castration produced a distinct eunuch class across Islamic courts. Institutionalized sexual exploitation brought generational trauma and mixed descent communities. Routine mutilation, killing, and harsh punishments fostered a climate of terror, while enforced cultural erasure produced long-lasting racial stigma in parts of the Arab world. Though individual circumstances varied, the overarching structure of the trade was defined by violence, exploitation, and profound human suffering. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience, here is the faith of the saints, the Israelites. Revelation 13:10. You sons of Ishmael, you wild man from the tents of Kedar, you from the loins of Abraham, but not the seed of the promise. Yes, Yahweh blessed you. Yes, you are Shemitic. But I cast you out with your Egyptian mother. You are not Isaac. You are not Jacob. You are not the chosen. And he shall be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. Genesis 16:12. This is prophecy. You are restless, warlike, blood-stained in your greed and in your sword. You enslaved the sons of Shem, the true Israelites, with the sons of Ham. You trafficked black flesh. You spilled the blood of my people. You think the world forgot, but Yahweh never forgot. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. Deuteronomy 32:35. Your foot shall slip in due time. Your day of disaster is near. Your doom comes swiftly, and you will kneel. You will bow to the king. Yahawashi, the Lion of Judah, when he returns with fire in his eyes and many crowns on his brow. The world told us, turn the other cheek. Matthew 5:39. Yes, we did. They mocked, don't repay evil for evil. 1 Peter 3:9. Yes, we waited. Do not say, I will avenge this evil. Wait on Yahweh, he will save you. Proverbs 20:22. And we waited. But now, Yahweh is not waiting. Yahweh is not waiting. For we know him who said, vengeance is mine. Hebrews 10:30. So hear this, you who traffic men's souls, you who took my children and sold them for spice, silk, and silver. Your kingdoms will burn, your wealth will rot, your mosques will fall, and your swords will be broken. For you will go into captivity, you will be judged. And Israel, the saints of the Most High, will rule the nations with a rod of iron. Prepare for my return.